Space Coast, Thursday, July 11th. And next we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So before I begin, I just want to let the audience know and the viewers on TV that we have a new audio system, and so far it sounds good, but you know, if we have any problems, just bear with us. So hopefully we'll go through the meeting without any issues. And if anyone in here wants to speak on public comments, please fill out the form in the back. And if there's a particular issue, we'll make sure you have your comments known on that item. So thank you. 3A is reports, Executive Director's Report. Georgiana.
Good afternoon. Included in your agenda is an updated status of projects to help keep you up to date on where our priority projects are and what's going on, where they're at in the pipeline. You also have the meeting minutes from the Central Florida MPO Alliance from May. You have a memo from TPO to Secretary Mike Shannon, and it's concerning the DOT LAP policy. LAP stands for the Local Agency Program, and it's a program that allows local governments to become LAP certified and use federal funds to implement projects off the state highway system. So we, the TPO, in effect, is the funding mechanism, and the local government is the implementing agency, and they sign a LAP agreement to administer these projects. So the reason the district developed this policy is due to a lot of inefficiencies in the program, such as delays in project schedules, also projects being deferred. And so it has really created a lot of issues because the department gets rated and graded from central office. So the more work program amendments you have to do, the more issues there are. So a LAP policy would really help with the expectations prior to programming the federal funds. So DOT has asked for comments. They sent out the LAP policy, and a lot of the MPOs have been commenting. And so that is just for your information. And then the next step that the department is going to do is to hold focus groups and take all the comments that were received. And we have one representative from the city of Melbourne, Tammy Gillen, and Karina from Brevard County that is going to be on that focus group. They want to keep it small from all the different MPO areas and try to revise the policy and make it something that we can all live with. Also, I want to congratulate Deputy Mayor Anderson for attending the MPOAC Weekend Institute. Thank you very much. And then my last item, I'd like to ask Abby to step up and just give a brief overview of our latest public involvement concerning our open house.
Good afternoon. I'm Abby Hemingway, the Public Involvement Officer for the Space Coast TPO. And I'm just going to briefly recap our open house that we held in early June. We do this event every year. It hasn't always been greatly attended. So I'm sure you know quite well that it's difficult sometimes to get people out in the evenings to open houses and public events. So we decided a little bit of a different strategic approach for this open house. Instead of hosting it here at the Government Center, we kind of took it to the people, and we held it at the Central Reference Library in the city of Cocoa. And we had great attendance. We had 38 people attend. Just as a reference, last year we only had 17. So we more than doubled that. It was an awesome event. You can kind of see here in the demographics, we had more female attendees, which is typical at most of our meetings, and it parallels with our metrics on social media as well. We reached a different age group this time. Most of the people who come out to our public meetings are 60 and over. We managed to reach a little bit of a demographic for this specific open house. The biggest takeaway for us was that 68% of the audience, this was their first time coming to a TPO event. So clearly we were able to promote it in a really positive way. Apart from our newsletter and our email marketing service that we use, Constant Contact, we use social media to push it out, and many of them heard about it on Nextdoor, which is a new platform that the TPO has joined in the last year. If you flip to the back side of that, another different thing that we did this year, apart from Georgiana presenting on the project priorities, was we allowed the attendees to visit learning stations of their interest. So we had different staff members host little tables that were focused on public involvement, safety and education, the transportation tech of the future projects, and then multimodal planning for resiliency and trails. So it was a really great event. We had Florida Today there, Space Coast podcast, and you can see there in the feedback, it was greatly received. So the conclusion that we came to was sometimes it's not just about pushing out information, it's engaging the citizens where they are and making sure that you follow up. We sent a thank you email, and we also sent a newsletter that detailed everything that we presented at the open house so that people who couldn't attend were able to get that information as well.
All right.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much. And that's it, Georgiana?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Item 3B.
Madam
Oh,
Chair,
yeah, I'm
before you
sorry,
get away.
Mr. Randalls.
Thank you. I guess my comment goes back to Georgiana. She took an aggressive step on behalf of our board here after our last discussion about writing to the district secretary. And I just want to thank you. That was a bold step because this is a complete change to everything, and you've covered it all.
Concerning LAP, yes, yes, sir.
And I'm looking forward to them focus groups that
Yes.
starting.
And I appreciate the district willing to listen to all of the MPOs, and I think that they are willing to, but thank you.
Wow, because all the cities are going to say, what is LAP? And that's bring your checkbook, really, is what it means. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Randalls. All right, item 3B is the Technical Advisory Committee, TAC, Citizens Advisory Committee, CAC report, and that's Georgiana.
All right. The TAC-CAC met on Monday, and at your place you have a summary of actions and attendance from the meeting. The committees did recommend that the TPO approve the meeting minutes from May 6th, the Transportation Disadvantaged Trust Fund Planning Grant, a resolution and a work order for our Vision Zero Action Plan scope of services that you'll be hearing more about, the 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan goals, our fiscal year 20 through 24 Transportation Improvement Program, and also our fiscal year 20 transportation project priorities, and you'll be hearing all about these a little later.
All right, thank you, Georgiana. I need a motion on the receipt of the draft TAC-CAC meeting minutes of May 6, 2019.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Lober, second by Ms. Minus. Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item 3C is the Bicycle Pedestrian Trails Advisory Committee report, and that is Sarah Crom. Sarah, why are you so tall? Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought there was a platform. Okay. All right.
Am I bright red now?
Me too, so we'll be twins. Okay.
Thank you. There we go. I got backup over here. All right, I'm Sarah Crom. I'm the Multimodal Program Specialist for the Space Coast TPO. The Bicycle Pedestrian Trail Advisory Committee met May 20th, 2019. They discussed and approved the Transportation Alternatives Project priorities, which are listed as the regional trails and the ped bike improvements in your priority list that you'll be viewing today. They also received a presentation from Transit One, which, if you're unfamiliar, is a transit advocacy group here in Brevard County. So, as I mentioned in May, June was National Trails Month, so I trust that every single one of you guys got out on the trail last month, right?
Okay. Maybe a little trail.
So to celebrate National Trails Month, the Space Coast TPO, Space Coast Government TV, and Brevard Parks and Rec released a series of trail videos. There's 5 of them. You can find them on our YouTube, social media. We don't have time to watch all 5 today, but I just wanted to highlight one of them. So there you go.
Wow. This is, all right.
Oh, that's...
Okay.
Parking for the trail is located at the Brevard Zoo trailhead. The trail is
There we
open from
go.
dawn to dusk, and the best
Thank
part,
you.
no admission fee. So grab your walking shoes or a bicycle, invite a friend. There's plenty of great stops along the way. Make sure to keep an eye out for wildlife sightings. So visit the trail today. For more information, go to www.brevardparks.com.
So that's just one of them. Special thanks to Brevard Public Schools for the drone footage on that one. And go out and check out the other videos and the other trails. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Any questions for Sarah? All right, seeing none. Next is 3D, the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board Committee, and this will be Scott.
Yes.
Hi, it's good to be
Good-
with you today.
Good afternoon, Scott.
I distributed this. It didn't make your agenda, but I'll be talking about a few of the items on here. We did have a TD-LCB meeting on June 17th. Prior to that, we had a selection committee meeting where we filled 2 vacancies on the local coordinating board. Linda Howard and Jennifer Cleveland were elected to our LCB board. At that meeting, we talked about ADA improvements to our Space Coast Area Transit website. That's an emphasis in Brevard County right now, is to get all websites up to ADA compliance, and we've put a lot of time and effort into that. And so there was a video and a report about that. Just other little things. We've been involved in some drills this time of the year. We do a lot to get ready for hurricane season at the transit services, and so we've had our annual orientations with our drivers, our annual orientation with our admin staff, and so they know what to do when there's a storm warning. We've participated with the EOC in their annual pre-drill, and so we feel like we're ready for whatever comes our way. Also, we are working on with the cities, going around in meeting with them regarding ADA upgrades to bus stops and also bus shelter projects with Satellite Beach, Vieira, Merritt Island, several municipalities. And we have a couple bus orders in the pipeline, and that's pretty much what we're about.
All right, thank you, Scott. Any questions for Scott? All right.
I'm sorry. We did have our grand opening for our Cocoa Transit Center. I neglected to say that, and several of you were there. I'm sorry, and I really appreciate your attendance. Commissioner Lober spoke there, Mayor Williams, and so that was awesome. And it was a hot day, but thank you so much for coming, those of you who made it.
All right, thank you, Scott. 4E is the Florida Department of Transportation report. Jamie Kersey. Good afternoon.
I'm Jamie Kersey with the Department of Transportation, and I just have a few updates for you today. Of course, you all know by now that the Vieira interchange has opened, the diverging diamond, and apparently it opened without a hitch.
Oh, good.
And the I-95 at Miko is running behind schedule. It's looking to open around late July. Interchange will not open until City of Palm Bay connector roadway is open. The west is being completed first with a connection to Babcock, estimated late fall. The I-95 at Ellis, this one is going to be completed in early 2021. The team is looking to begin an extended detour of the intersection of John Rhodes Boulevard and Ellis Road in late July, early August.
All right.
And that's all I have. Do you have
Thank
any
you.
questions?
Any questions for Jamie? All right.
I would like to introduce Stephen from Rethink Commute.
Morning, everybody, or afternoon.
Good
Sorry, that kind of day. I'm excited to be here. I'm the program manager. My name's Stephen Alinello. I'm the program manager for Rethink Your Commute. So it's the FDOT District 5 Commuter Assistance Program. We work with commuters and businesses specifically on employee and employer transportation throughout Central Florida. And one of the things that we do is we partner with transit agencies and municipalities to create some great events that increase exposure where it makes sense for those different modes. About 5 years ago, we started working with Space Coast Area Transit at a pretty humble event, I would say, with about 30 people and the ribbon cutting of whatever we could find to cut a ribbon. And it grew to what is now known as the Tourism and Transit Summit that most of you have attended, if not this past Valentine's Day, but in the previous few years. And each year, that event isn't only growing for the stakeholder business leader event that many of you find yourselves at, but there's also a rider appreciation component that has continued from year one each year. So that event, we know that this is a great event within District 5. It's one of the ones that we see the best metrics on. It definitely takes great photos. But we had the chance to nominate it statewide for something called the Travel Choices Award, which are awards from the Florida Department of Transportation statewide, as well as the Center for Urban Transportation Research. So that's Cutter over at the University of South Florida. So we did nominate this event and for the Marketing Excellence Award to see how it would stack up, against the whole state. And we were delighted that it did win. So that was just in May when we received the award, and I'm here today to present it in front of you all to Scott Nelson with Space Coast Area Transit, as we cannot do this event without them.
Okay, very good.
I think we have time for a quick photo. Yes, please.
Scott, you bring your own photographer, huh?
Thank you all, and I should be remiss if I didn't say thank you for the TPO support of the event the last few years. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Stephen.
Thanks a lot.
All right, very good. Next is item 4, consent agenda. Ms. Georgiana.
All right, there are 5 items on the consent agenda, and I will read them aloud, and they can be passed as one motion. Approval of minutes from the May 9th TPO board meeting. We have new committee appointments, finance and budget. The first item is our fiscal year 20 operating budget. And then the second one is our fiscal year 19 operating budget. It's our second quarterly report. Also, adoption of our fiscal year 20 through 22 governing board strategic plan. We presented that to you at the last meeting, and we received no comments on it, so we are looking forward to adopting that. And then the last item is Resolution 20-01, Transportation Disadvantaged Trust Fund Planning Grant.
All right, thank you, Georgiana. Any questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I need a motion. All right, moved by approval by Commissioner Lober, second by Commissioner Allender. Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item 5A, approval of the Resolution 20-02 endorsing the Vision Zero and WO 20-10K Vision Zero Action Plan Scope of Services. And you're going to lead that, Georgiana?
Yes. So as Laura comes up, I just wanted to set this up. We have a long history, meaning the TPO, of supporting safety programs and efforts to increase awareness of all the safety challenges that we have here in Brevard County. And so with Brevard continuing to have such a high number of crashes, especially involving our vulnerable road users, we've been working to identify a new enhanced approach. And so Vision Zero, I'm sure a lot of you have heard that term. It's been around for many years, but it's based on a new philosophy that traffic fatalities and serious injuries are preventable, and the only acceptable number is 0. So Vision Zero really requires a fundamental change in the way we think about traffic safety and planning, because we really have a complex problem on our hands. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura.
Thank you, Georgiana. Today's presentation is going to be a little bit different. It is a PowerPoint. I do want to give credit to Abby on our staff, who, while I was on vacation, finished this up for me. And also Kim Smith on our staff is also going to be the project manager for this program. I need you to all be focused. It's going to require a little bit of reading of the slides because I'm not going to talk. I'll come up afterwards and we can have a discussion and hopefully approval of the resolution and scope that you have in your package. And hopefully this works with the new technology.
It will, Laura, it will.
Positive.
Then you're
probably 100 or so, at least.
I'm gonna go with, yeah, somewhere around 150.
I'll guess 300.
I'm not sure. 1,000, maybe?
I guess probably a few thousand a year.
50?
Too many? A few thousand?
Yeah. Cycling on White Ave and a car Bisbee by about that much. Going at 30 miles per hour.
Yes, I have.
How many?
I think 2.
I was in a collision once when I was younger.
Have I ever been in a collision? Yes.
I have.
Yes?
I've been in a few.
Yes, just the other day. Honestly, I think it's just people driving recklessly. Like, I see it all the time, even my parents do it.
Distraction.
Not paying attention.
Well, people get distracted, whether it's on the cell phone or they're doing something in the car.
Complacency, I guess.
Not likely.
Not a chance.
I don't think it's possible.
It'd be nice to strive towards that, but there's only so much you can do.
No.
No. Honestly, it'd be nice if there were less than 10 fatalities a year.
If we could get down to 500.
100 as a first goal. If we add in some more measures, maybe 100 a year would be really nice. 10 would be a good number.
Under 100 would probably be good, but. Say 0?
0, yeah. 0.
0? 0.
None.
Well, I always hope for no collisions at all. So that would be, I guess, 0 would be the number.
I think it should, yeah. Of course, yeah.
Yeah, that should be a goal with everyone.
I think that's a good goal.
I'd say so, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, it should be.
That should be the goal for everyone.
not very good statistics. What are we going to do? Everyone in this room and everybody in the world needs to take focus on who's out on our roads. And we need to change how we think here. Some cultures are very different than ours, and I think we need to change our culture. This here is showing all of our modes, just the fatals and serious injuries. The total number of crashes we have average around 9,000 to 10,000 a year, just in Brevard County. So we need to do a different approach. Staff has been very busy trying to figure out, well, what can we do differently? We do a lot of things already for safety, but apparently it's not working well enough. We need to change our attitudes, and we need to stop talking about it and start doing. There are engineering designs that come forward. They are controversial. They do inconvenience drivers occasionally for a few moments a day, but if we have road diets or traffic circles that are presented, we need the support to start implementing them and changing our attitude. It's now time for a vision of zero. So today, we're looking for you to approve Resolution 20-03 in your package that outlines our plan or our new approach, an enhanced approach, I shouldn't say specifically new. There's a scope of services to utilize consultants to create a Vision Zero action plan for the TPO. There are things that we can do from a policy perspective that would help us scoring of our priorities, for example, that we will have later today on the agenda, and emphasize and prioritize safety projects above the other projects that are maybe just capacity related, for example. And also the plan would encourage municipalities to develop their own vision action plans. Every municipality is different. Those on the beach side are not the same as those on the mainland. They will have a different vision, different approaches to implementing a Vision Zero than other areas, so they would need to be customized for each unique area. So we're asking you today for these approvals and to start thinking differently. We do not have the answers today. The answers and the solutions, we won't be at zero tomorrow or next year, but we've got to start thinking that that is the proper goal. And having the attitude will take us a long way. So we'll be happy to answer any questions, and hopefully we'll have everyone's participation in the stakeholder meetings that we will have over the upcoming year once you approve the scope of services.
All right, thank you, Laura. Any questions for Laura? All right, Commissioner Smith.
This is a pet peeve of mine. How can we get to Vision Zero when we put little images of bicyclists in and on roads like at Airport Boulevard? Those roads are not meant for people to be riding their bicycles down the middle of the road. And when a bicyclist and a car come in contact with each other, it's not good for the bicyclist. And so that's my question. Who came up with that idea that we should...
For Sharrows?
Yeah.
For road sharing.
Yeah, that's an engineering concept, and it has to deal with speed, and it does depend upon the location, but you're going to have to counteract that with the driver's anticipation and the expectation. Our attitudes here, and mine too, I agree sometimes, we are aggravated when we see a bicyclist in the road, and until you change the law that bicyclists aren't allowed in the road, we're going to have to learn to accept them and move over.
Well, you ride on the same roads and drive on the same roads as I do, and you know that there are some drivers that think this world is mine, and this road is mine.
I agree.
And don't get in my way. Well, we have bicyclists with the same attitude.
Yes.
And when those two get together, bicyclists lose.
That's why I said it's the attitude. We've
That's
got
right,
to
you're
change
right,
the attitude, and we have to have enforcement involved. This is not something that goes away after a year once we develop the scope. This is something that, if it's adopted, this is a new program. It's in perpetuality as far as I'm concerned. It will be here until we reach zero and beyond, and to keep enforcing that we reach zero. If we don't have the change in the attitude, I don't believe it will be successful. But we've got to start somewhere, and I'm willing to make that commitment today that I've changed my mind. I just got back from a long trip, and I've been across the seas, and they have different attitudes. You step in a crosswalk, they stop. Why don't we? If it's your loved one, you want them to stop.
That's right. Yeah, I'm sorry, I got Commissioner Lober, and then... I'm sorry. Oh, okay, yeah, Commissioner Pritchard.
But I know he goes longer than I do.
Okay. All right, so let's make it short. Oh, sorry.
No, please.
Please do.
Okay.
All right.
No, I was just going to ask you, Does your program have anything by way of suggesting how you determine the balance between projects? For instance, if you have a need for expanding road capacity, but you also have a need for improving the safety on existing roads, is there anything in what you're proposing that addresses how we should go about looking at particular factors to determine where it's appropriate to spend those resources?
I think that would be determined on a project by project specific basis. Some areas you're going to make a compromise more for capacity. I would think on your higher, like US 1, in some areas where it's high speed and it's more rural, you're not going to make the capacity less of an issue than you would safety. But when you're coming downtown US 1 in Melbourne, for example, if it's an inconvenience to remove a lane, then we need to remove a lane. And that's where the hard decisions need to be made, that we're not making them anymore. We're wanting to continue with that capacity, and we want to get in our cars, and we want to get from point A to point B super quick. But if you look where people have made their sacrifice, and it's not popular, I am telling you this program will not be popular. But if we embrace it and have a positive result with just maybe an example where we do a pilot somewhere, then we'll get the buy-in. We've got to get buy-in and get a successful location where we do implement a change, and then I think we can grow from there. But I agree with you. It is difficult to do, but it's something we have to work with the community, our law enforcement, all of our elected officials, so we get a balance.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Commissioner Pritchett. I'm sorry that I didn't see you. Okay.
I always have to try to get it from him in meetings. Just a thought, our population's picking up, so this is part of our problem. We're having overpopulated roads, and we probably need to do a little work on it. But I agree with Commissioner Smith. And up north, we call them suicide lanes. Those little bicycles off there. So, and you know, they might have done that with road studies, but I think we're gonna have to get some common sense in part of this. We gotta separate the bikes and the walkers from the traffic, because here's the thing too, everybody's in a hurry now trying to get to work with the life we're living in, and thank goodness we don't text and drive anymore, but people are still on their phones. But right. We have to do this, but I think we're gonna have to have somebody come up with a plan, and we're gonna have to start trying to figure out how to implement this. This is gonna take a while. But we also have an aging population, and as we're getting older,
I'm getting real sensitive to that,
yeah,
okay?
I know, I get all sensitive to it myself, but we have a lot more factors we have to take into consideration, because we're also outdoors. So we're trying to encourage people on foot, but we put in these new bike paths and all these items now, but you know, some things we weren't very smart with. So I think it's gonna take a lot of money, but maybe we can figure out some target areas of where to start that are the highest areas. And I would like to focus more on where the children are getting hurt the most, and then work through the path. But I think this is gonna be quite a path, but I agree with you totally. I would never get on my bicycle on 407 and ride in those things, because it's just crazy.
Ms. Gibson.
Yeah, okay. One thing from what you said, we just got back from Utah, and it's such a different culture out there. I mean, they have the bike share lanes, and there's no issues. People know how to drive because they're used to it. It's a cultural idea, because we may not have the space on some of these roads to add bike lanes, so that's something we have to think about. And what was my other point? Oh, Satellite Beach. You can use us as a test point. We wouldn't complain at all. We've already been through the ringer with the crosswalk, so we know how to handle it. Yeah. Which, by the way, have been extremely successful. No problems, no complaints.
I think
anything.
it has been very successful.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're on radar. I mean, you know whether somebody's going to be on that crosswalk, and I think it's been a positive thing.
But I think the other side of it is, you know, jaywalking. When I grew up, you know, you always heard you didn't want to get a jaywalking ticket. I mean, do any of us cities know if anyone of our police officers have ever given a jaywalking ticket?
I would be guessing, but I'm going to say no.
Well, there's a thought, you know. I mean, we have people that we are starting to enforce. We're giving them warnings, but 50 feet away from the crosswalk, and they're walking with their 2-year-old kid in a raft and a surfboard and a buggy, and they're trying to cross A1A, and there's a perfectly legitimate crosswalk with lights, and here they are walking, you know, in a completely unsafe environment where nobody can see them until the last second. So it's pedestrian education as well, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Mr. Bailey.
Thank you. And mentioning, no, jaywalkers, I actually just had somebody do that in front of the avenues to me yesterday when I was up here. But my question is, what are we already doing to address the safety enhancements, and how is this going to be different from what we're already doing?
That is a very...
Wow.
There is one of the things that we will be doing is probably having, Kim will be compiling, and we have mentioned them before and presented them before this board, some of the safety initiatives. We've been involved with obviously with the education of the school-age children for many, many, many years. We've been working with the local municipalities, especially for the RRFBs that are out there. That's a new enforcement or, what am I looking for? Approach to letting people cross where and identifying where it is not necessarily safe, but this is an appropriate place to cross. It is an education with just not only the younger children, but our younger generation that is in their 20s and 30s. We also have outreach to the elderly that we're doing on an annual basis. We reach out to them with their community centers. There's a whole barrage of things that are being done to help with safety, but I think we need a focused initiative where we're using the media. We have a pilot program. We change our policies and procedures and our priorities, that we change our approach to, like I was mentioning before, we look at what are we proposing and who is it for, and if it's for all modes, which is what we're supposed to be doing, and it inconveniences one over another a little bit, but it protects the safety of all, we need to make that decision to go ahead with that improvement. And I'm not going to give examples because I'm not going to call anybody out. We have been doing that and been turned down. So this isn't a Vision Zero. It's a different approach where we have your buy-in from the beginning. You develop the policies. You agree to what kind of changes we're going to make. That way, you've already agreed to it, and we're not bringing something to you that is not comfortable that you then deny, that you do agree to it when it's been brought forth.
I will tell you, if you cross the crosswalk, when you hit the button, they just automatically will walk across. They don't stop and think, well, is it safe to go across? I mean, we need some education.
Yeah, that's why.
What happened to that little boy, that 9-year-old boy?
Yes.
In April of 17 on Post Road. He hit the button, he just stepped right in front of the truck.
Yeah. He was 9 years old, I believe. But yeah, so, all right. So somebody had a,
Yep.
oh yeah, Mr. Santiago.
Yeah, I also want to throw in as well, you know, among other things that was mentioned with regards to.
Sir, is your mic on?
Sure, it's on.
It's on,
Yeah.
okay.
It's that we also live in a very transient county where we get a lot of newcomers here. As you say, we're growing, so we probably got a mixture of culture here in terms of drivers. But I just wanted to be sure, what this is a strategy to implement some education going forward.
It
So
will
buy-in
include
and education. So it's not so much, we're not, I guess we're not forcing municipalities and county to implement certain things that would create an unfunded mandate on their part. We're just educating everyone and getting buy-in. So that's all we're doing, right?
Yeah, it's a combination of the education, the engineering, the enforcement, the famous E's that we're known for. Is a comprehensive program. And the stakeholder task force that will be compiled will exist of all the municipalities. Hopefully we'll have their participation so that they'll be involved from the beginning. And like I said, it is up to the individual municipalities. There's nothing being forced. There's no financial burden that this is going to bring. But I can see down the road, if you have a proposed transportation improvement project, there's cost related to that. And that's where your cost comes in. Do you want to spend a little bit more to buy 5 feet more of right-of-way, or do you want to reduce your lanes enough that you can allow a bicycle buffer bike lane in there? Those where your costs will be coming in.
I have one other follow-up
Okay,
question. Do we have any idea of what this program have done in other areas? I see that it was implemented overseas, I think.
In Canada.
What I saw, yeah, in Canada, Sweden.
Yeah, Sweden was the initial country that came up with the concept. Forgive me for the statistics that I don't have right offhand, but I know New York City has actually already implemented this a few years ago, and they're seeing up to a 50% reduction in their fatalities and serious injuries. Portland, I believe, is another area, Philadelphia. There are probably a half dozen to a dozen municipalities and cities throughout the United States that have implemented this over the last 10 years, and they have seen a significant reduction.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a good idea to perhaps show those numbers, see what other
Yes.
municipalities and countries have implemented
Yeah.
this, and some of the changes that have happened over time.
We can definitely get those statistics for you. Hillsborough MPO in the state of Florida has adopted a Vision Zero. They have a whole program over there, and they're starting to see the results of that too. So we can bring that information to you. And everyone, when we do have the first workshop, everyone is invited. We'll be having all that information available, but we'd be happy to include that in the package if that's okay.
Okay.
Some of the statistics to help support the program.
Ms. Young?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, are we putting the
crosswalks once we educate the people how to use them? Are we putting them where they're most needed? We have a place now that I'm working on having just that exact thing changed in order for these people, and it's a large group of people, to catch the bus right out in front of the stops to pick them up. It's across the street. In order for them to get to it, they have to come out to the end, go down a very, very long way, it's like 300 yards to the crosswalk, and then back up the other 300 yards to get exactly across from where they just were. If it's hot, if it's raining, if it's dark, you know, they don't want to do that, of course not. So they go through there just like everybody else, the shortest route, and they jaywalk across the road. The roads are dark, very, very dark here, as we know, and they take a chance every single time. So I'm asking, that's what I'm asking now. We go to the city manager, we talk to them, we do whatever we can do, depending on the city we live in, to get our crosswalks put where people use them most, because it doesn't do any good if people don't use them, and they're not going to. Also, licensing. Driver's license test. I can't tell you the last time I was asked to take an actual road test. And things change, and people need to know how to drive, and they need to know what signs mean and to watch out for bicyclists, not just to read it in the little booklet and then go in and take your test. Even though I was up for the written test, it was waived, and you just renew your license. And gosh, it's been decades, but that's my comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Oh, Commissioner Lober.
Just briefly. So I'm looking at page 105 in our packet that's talking about, among other things, Pinellas County attempting to reduce by an annual basis 5% the fatalities and serious injuries. I mean, it's great to have an aspirational goal of 0, but what realistically are we looking at achieving on an annual basis, perhaps? So is a 5% goal a reasonable goal?
That is something that when we do the plan, the action plan, we will be looking to identify what that number is. We didn't want to present that today because we just don't know. Okay. We think we need to go through the data and figure out something that's reasonable and something that we can achieve, and then eventually get to 0. But we do need to start somewhere. We're not just going to go from 60 to 80 fatalities to 0 in 1 year. I agree, it's unrealistic, but we do need to target something, and we'll find out what that number is.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mr. Randalls.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I sat in this chair representing Cocoa Beach and Cape Canaveral. Not that means a lot, but we're number 3 in the nation for pedestrian and bicycle fatalities along A1A. Mm-hmm. Not a very popular achievement. We've been part of this for probably 3 or 4 years of Vision 0. One of the best things that we have found was something that DOT now is kind of discontinued, and that's complete streets. We in Cape Canaveral and Cocoa Beach have taken the advantage of putting a pedway along the sides of our busy streets. Sure, we've taken somebody's yard by there. You know, I don't want you to take my yard unless you move the sprinkler system. We've done that. But getting the bicycles off that 1-foot sideway of the highway is really got to happen. And I guess all that to say, as I speak in support of it, Brevard County had 87 fatalities and 196 serious injuries for pedestrians and bicycles in the last 5 years. It wasn't up there, but you can total it and add it up. It's in our program here. I guess I would speak for it and let whoever else we should speak, but when you get to making the motion, I certainly would be available to make it.
All right. If there's no other comments, Mr. Randalls, go ahead and make the motion.
Okay, got it written down. If the chair's ready for this.
Well, what are you going to say? All right, go ahead.
Randalls will move to approve resolution number 20-02, endorsing Vision 0, and approve the work order 2010K and Vision 0, plan and scope of services. If you didn't get a chance to read all this, we're going with it. Is it Bow Stern?
That will be the public outreach consultant. Yeah. Fiddleson and Associates will be the prime.
We have used them to design this, and we're looking for a contract with them to prepare this, I believe. So my motion would be to support.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval by Mr. Randalls, second by Commissioner Smith, as stated in the package. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And I vote aye, and the motion passes.
Thank you, Laura.
Can I make
Good
a
job.
comment real quick? Just
I'm
real
sorry.
quick.
Go ahead.
Just the reason that I voted aye on it is you saw 4 sites in Palm Bay. I know
Yes.
where every single one of those is.
Yes.
The last one is a lifelong friend's daughter. So until it's a friend of yours, 0 doesn't seem like that big of a goal. But once it's a friend of yours and it touches your family, like we had to meet with those families and talk to those people and drive by those sites every day. There's no excuse for us not to strive for 0. Anything less would be unacceptable. If that was your child, you certainly wouldn't be arguing this. And I know nobody voted no, but there's no cost too great when a child gets hit. One boy was crossing a crosswalk with his father. With his father. You're telling me that wasn't a distracted driver? We got to do better.
All right, thank you, Mr. Anderson. All right, item 5B, adopt the 2445 Long-Range Transportation Plan, the LRTP goals, Stephen Bostel. And he's a brand-new dad, and he came.
So on a lighter note, look at that little new member of the Bostel family.
Oh, that's nice. All right.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. He was nice enough to let me get 5.5 hours of sleep last night, so I'm doing pretty good.
Oh, you're doing real good.
He's 5 weeks today.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
We're proud of you.
And even let me work on this presentation some past few weeks when I've been at home helping take care of him. So it's time for us to move into the goals and objectives part of our long-range transportation plan development. I was up here a few months ago talking about our survey that we had available. And so I'll go over some of the results of that and how we're going to use them in our goals development, or how we have used them. And so just a quick overview, just because we do have membership change and not everyone lives the long-range transportation plan as passionately as I do. Why we do it, we have to do it whenever we reach a population over 50,000 in an urbanized area. It's one of our federally required work products that we have to produce as an MPO. And we have to look at least 20 years into the future, and because it is so far off, things change. We don't get it right every time. We do have to update it every 5 years. And part of this whole process is doing a financial analysis and making sure that the projects are cost feasible and affordable given our future revenue forecasts. And any project that wants to receive federal or state transportation funds must be in our long-range transportation plan. And so, as I mentioned, we had our survey open. It was open from January 5th to April 30th. I looked at the results. I think just almost everyone in here took it. I won't name names who didn't take it, but I did go in and look. I know who you were.
We'll protect the innocent.
But we did have a really good response. We had close to 4,000 survey respondents. We had our marketing firm, Bow Stern, help us out, and Abby Hemingway, our public information officer. They did a great job getting the word out on social media. We also sent out materials to the Brevard Public Libraries. All of our staff, whatever event we were at, tried to put in a plug for it, get as many people as possible to know about it and go out and take the survey. And so we got a lot of comments on social media as well, but the fact that we hit close to almost 1 million social media impressions to me was very impressive, because as Abby talked, getting outreach to the public, is somewhat challenging. And so using the social media platforms this time around, now that we have a larger presence, thanks to Abby, online, we've gotten a lot bigger response. And our video that we developed with the little guy in the jetpack, he was a big hit too, and had around 100,000 views. And so the survey responses were very close to what they were last time when we developed our 2040 long-range transportation plan. So not too many of you were probably very surprised that 96% of our survey respondents drive as their primary mode of transportation. As Laura was talking, we're a very car-centric county. We're long, narrow, kind of spread out, so everybody drives where they need to get to go. And if you take a look at the bar chart there, higher the number, the better it was rated. So roadway visibility, general driving travel, landscaping, and roadway, even safety kind of on the road rated pretty well. So survey respondents thought our roads are pretty good. But if you look at the opposite end, our bicycle and transit facilities, not so great. But surprisingly, even though that they rated the roads good, many of them still think that roadways should still be the #1 priority. And that really gets to what you were just talking about prior to, is trying to move to a culture shift, because we're saying that our bicycle and transit facilities need work, but we still want roads. So again, it's a culture shift that we might be able to work on and start working on, since we're talking 2045 in this case, so we can really start being futuristic and pitching some new ideas. And only 4% of our respondents ride transit regularly. We didn't get to reach out as much as we wanted to, like on the transit services, like getting on the buses and doing the survey, but we did get some good feedback from the 4% that did take the survey. And that is basically the summary of results. And so, as I mentioned, that's very similar to what we saw in our last time we did the survey for our 2040 long-range plan back in 2015. And so during our last plan update, I've mentioned in the past that we spent a significant amount of time coming up with a long-term vision. And the key themes in the vision were to invest in ports, continue our high-tech focus, and encouraging the high-tech industry to come to Brevard. And some of those things that those workers want are more walkable communities, less reliance on autos, a wider variety of housing, and more travel options. And this vision is really to get everyone thinking differently, because this is going beyond more than what TPOs were designed to do. We were set up to increase capacity of roadways, and we've pretty much completed that here in Brevard for the most part. There's a few new road projects and widening projects on the horizon, but it's just becoming too expensive and costly to take the right-of-way or to acquire the right-of-way to keep widening. So, and we've heard from our residents that they want different things. And so getting into the goals, we have a lot of different goals and a lot of different plans. We have our bicycle pedestrian trails master plan, we have our ITS master plan, we have a lot of plans. And so what we try to do this time around is try to consolidate all of them in line with our strategic plan that you just adopted under consent, and to try to cover everything, because the long-range plan is really our guiding document. And so the goals will define our priorities as we move through the process. And if we take a look at safety and we want safety projects to rate higher, that could be something that we look at as we move along. We've heard from the citizens, and the goals that we have drafted are in line with the needs and input that we've heard from them. And it ensures that federal highway planning factors are met. So we had to make some tweaks from our goals last time, just because we've got some new changes, and I'll go over them in a moment. But there's also a handout at your place, this big matrix. This the columns on the right with all the numbers. Those are all of our, oh, sorry, get used to this new setup here. The columns on the right are all of the federal highway national planning factors. And so there's quite a few of them. And so we want to make sure that we cover all of them, and they all fall under the different 4 main goals. And so I'm not going to go through all of the goals or all of the objectives, but I do want to touch high level on the goals, but you're welcome to view all of those on that handout. And so goal number 1 is to improve economic development with a connected multimodal system. It's pretty broad. We have some really big multimodal hubs in Brevard. They're the lifeblood of our economy in a lot of cases. Without space, most of us wouldn't be here. And we have all of the retail and all the amenities that we need to get all of our workers and citizens to and from, make sure everything's connected for all of our users. So that's what goal 1 really covers. And goal 2 is to improve safety and security for all users. Just had a big conversation about safety. Some comment from the Technical and Citizens Advisory Committee on Monday. They would like this to be our number 1 goal. It makes a lot of sense. So we didn't really have them in order, but we think that making this number 1 will send a message that it is our top priority. Goal 3 is to enhance connectivity and reliability of our transportation system for our communities, tourism, and commerce. Tourism is a new piece for us. We haven't really looked at that much in the past, and it's a new planning requirement that we do need to look into it. And fortunately for us, FDOT has done a Central Florida visitor study, and so they've kind of anticipated this change, and they've given us some good base data to start to work with, and we're working with the TDC as well to get some information from them in order to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our tourists as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And then goal 4 is to preserve and provide a resilient transportation system through balancing social and environmental resources. So last time around we had preserve our natural environment and balance growth for this goal. And so this time we've added resiliency because we've done a lot of work on that. It's become a big topic for conversation, and it's also a new federal planning requirement. And Sarah's done some great work on that we're going to be able to include in our plan. And so that's just a high-level overview of all of the goals that we need you to consider for adoption today for us to continue to move forward. The next steps are going to be developing our needs, and we're getting data from all the municipalities now to find out what you all are working on in your areas to make sure that we make sure everyone's needs are taken into consideration. And then we'll be developing corridor strategic plans and our cost feasible plan. And then this all has to be accomplished and adopted by October of 2020.
Okay.
And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve? All right, seeing none. So I need an approval to adopt the long-range transportation plan goals. All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Lober, second by Ms. Minus. Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Item 5C is to adopt the resolution 20-03 fiscal year 2020 to 2024 Transportation Improvement Plan or Program, which we call TIP, and this will be Georgiana.
Yes, ma'am. The next two items are mine. This is a housekeeping item, but it's a very important one. The TPO is required by state and federal law to develop a transportation improvement program. So this is a listing of all the transportation projects that are funded in the FDOT work program covering 5 years, and that is between fiscal year 20 through 24. Each March, the tentative work program is submitted to the governor and the legislature, and then it's given to the TPO for the development of the Transportation Improvement Program. We are required to develop basically a document that reflects the DOT work program that is useful for the public. Because if you've ever seen the DOT work program, it is not the most user-friendly document, and it's not a citizen-friendly document. The draft TIP was sent out to you at the very beginning of June to the committees and the board, and it's been open for public comment for over 30 days. We have not received any comments on the projects, and it was a big topic of conversation at our annual open house that Abby mentioned. And if you look on page 73 of the TIP, which you do not have at your place, the document is, if you would have printed it, it was about this big. It has all of our performance measures, and it is quite a large document. But on page 73, it is a 5-year summary in the TIP, and there is $834 million in federal, state, and local matching funds that is coming into Brevard County. And that is for all modes. We're talking space, airport, capacity, maintenance, safety. So all of this funding coming into Brevard County roadways and helping our economy and our roadways. So we are asking for your approval of Resolution 20-03, adopting our fiscal year 20 through 24 TIP.
Thank you, Georgiana. Any questions for Georgiana? All right, seeing none, I need a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval by Commissioner Allender, second by, I'm sorry, I missed it. Okay, Mr. Anderson. Discussion?
Need a roll call.
Yes.
Yes, sir. And then I will require a roll call vote.
Allender?
Yes.
Alfrey?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Bailey?
Yes.
Gibson?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Lober?
Aye.
Meehan?
Yes.
Minus?
Aye.
Pritchett?
Aye.
Randall?
Yes.
Santiago,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Price.
Yes.
Did I miss anyone?
No, I think we got it. All right, and the motion passes. Item 5.6. Oh, excuse me, I think I skipped. 5D, adopt the 2020 Space Coast TPO Transportation Project Priorities. Georgiana again.
All right, so this is the annual adoption of our transportation project priorities, and it really is one of the most important things I think that we do as a TPO. It's really where the planning meets the money. That's Bob used to always say that, and it's so true. So I know we do have a few new members here, so I just kind of wanted to mention real quickly, where did these projects come from? You know, Stephen spoke about our long-range transportation plan goals, and that really provides the framework for our future investments. It provides the guidance for selecting projects to be incorporated into the cost-feasible plan of the long-range plan. So the state of the system analysis that we present to you every year is another key component in how we arrive at these decisions for future transportation investments. Our traffic count program is also very important. We have to know where the problems are. We monitor its roadways on an annual basis, and it's documented in our annual State of the System report. And we monitor for all users and all modes. It's not just capacity. So each year we request projects from our local governments, typically around February, and all of our transportation agencies. We gather all those projects together. We take them to our transportation subcommittee, which are the planners and the engineers from all the different municipalities, and we discuss them and we rank them. And then we bring them to you. So after you adopt them, we turn the priority list over to the DOT, and they try to fund as many projects with available state and federal funding. So I'd like to talk about, I'm not going to talk about every project on our priority list. I'm just going to mention the big ones. And of course, I have to talk about the one that is completed. It opened in July, on July 1st, and that is the Diverging Diamond Interchange. It is the first of its kind in East Central Florida. And so this is one of those proven federal highway countermeasures to improve safety that Laura was talking about when she was talking about engineering projects that are kind of, they're not the norm, but this is one that we think is really going to be a good fit for the area. So the new Ellis Road interchange that's currently under construction was a priority for many, many years. It will connect to the St. John's Heritage Parkway to the west, and it will provide that new multi-lane connection that will extend from the interchange to Wickham. The interchange is scheduled to be completed in early 2021, as Jamie mentioned. And then, of course, the future widening of Ellis is next. It's number one on the SIS priority list. We have right-of-way funded over a 5-year period between fiscal year 21 through 25. And so the goal is to try and get that right-of-way funding advanced, and we need to fund construction because we will have a very congested Ellis once the interchange opens up. And we believe that, you know, it's going to reduce traffic demands on New Haven and O'Galley as well. The new, I'm sorry, let me see here. So this is also a new Diverging Diamond Interchange about 1.5 miles north of Mico. Jamie also mentioned this, and it'll break up that 17-mile stretch between Fellsmere and Malabar Road. And then the new access road will connect the interchange to Babcock Street. Of course, we have the design of the beach line that is underway right now from Industry to Port Canaveral. We all know that the right-of-way phase is programmed in 2024, but we do not have construction funding in the 5-year work program. We know that good mobility is critical along 528, but there have been a lot of discussions on how to improve the health of the lagoon and if there's any possible way that we can incorporate that into this project. And so we're going to get an update on that evaluation in just a little bit from the DOT. The NASA Causeway, also known as the Indian River Bridge, is considered critical infrastructure for freight mobility and workforce access at our spaceport. The PD&E phase for the Twin Bridge replacement is expected to be finalized in fiscal year 2020, and the design phase is underway and is happening in conjunction with the PD&E, and this is in an effort to expedite the project. Design is expected to be complete in early spring of 2021. And we were really excited to work with Space Florida and our NASA partners to submit an infrastructure grant to USDOT. And we did receive a call, and they had some questions, which I've heard is a really good sign when they start asking questions and wanting some clarification. So we are very hopeful that that infra grant comes through. So moving on to, out of the CIS, onto our regionally significant priorities. US 192 in Hollywood, major intersection improvement is #1 on the regionally significant list. It also includes sidewalk improvements along Evans, which is going to be part of that project. We have right-of-way funded between the years of fiscal year 19 through 24, and that's not a lot of, it's roughly around $4 million in right-of-way. So the goal of this one is to advance that right-of-way and get the construction funded sooner rather than later. I think it's a lot of bang for the buck and really help with capacity at that intersection. A1A and 520. The primary intent of this project was really to improve the intersection for pedestrians and bicyclists. The northbound left turning motorists, it's to also improve that by removing the free flow right turn lane. The department is looking at those free flow right turn lanes, which they see as very dangerous. It's not good for pedestrians as they're trying to walk, and there's one at O'Galley. And every place that you see those within the district, I think you're going to see them starting to transition out. So this project will start construction very soon, and it will probably be very messy, so you may want to avoid it. But once it's complete, I think it'll be a really good project for the community.
The signs are already up.
Okay, soon.
Flashing.
Very good. Oh. And so another project, this isn't capacity, but it's, again, improving conditions for bicyclists and pedestrians. And this is the intersection of A1A and Atlantic Avenue and International Drive in the city of Cape Canaveral. DOT is in the process of looking at the best alternative to realign that intersection. And one of the alternatives they're looking at is a DOT-built roundabout, a very large one. And so I know that Councilman Randalls is aware of that, as well as the city. And so this is something that may be coming to the public for discussion at some point. And of course, we know we're going to get some pushback because roundabouts are not very popular. And then the second part of this project, moving to the north of that intersection, is putting in a curb and gutter from that intersection all the way to George King Boulevard. And there will be public meetings on both of these projects as they progress. But the curb and gutter project will include a median. You have the bidirectional turn lane, which is very dangerous, and folks will walk out in the center of that lane. And they're also going to be looking at mid-block crossings as well. So the next project is the future 6 laning of Babcock in the Palm Bay area from Malabar to Palm Bay Road. This project has been on the priority list for many years, and it's needed due to traffic demands and safety. The design is completed, and the right-of-way is programmed between fiscal year 2019 and 2024. It's a very big number, and we have been trying to advance the right-of-way as we get additional money as much as we can. Unfortunately, the construction is unfunded, but it will also include on-street bike lanes and sidewalks at this point. And then we have Clear Lake in the city of Cocoa. This is a project that we see more and more traffic on daily. The PD&E and the design is complete, and it's been sitting on the shelf. The right-of-way estimate is around $13 million, and we do not have money for right-of-way or construction right now. The typical section will be a 4-lane divided roadway with 7-foot bicycle lanes and 6-foot sidewalks on both sides. And if we do get our Virgin train station, and I believe we will, This is one of the areas that we really need to be looking at. Another area we need to be looking at is State Road 524, the widening of that. A PD&E on that will begin very soon, and that the limits is from South Friday Road to Industry. There's substantial growth on 524. I don't know if you've traveled it recently. And there's also a high crash rate with the Fly-in J Center, the Walmart Distribution Center. A widening is needed to accommodate the additional traffic as well as accommodations for bicyclists and pedestrians. And then we have, going back to the south part of the county, Malabar Road, the state road portion. We have design funded in fiscal year 22 for the section between Babcock and US 1. Unfortunately, right-of-way and construction is unfunded, and the right-of-way cost is very expensive. And this is a corridor that we need to look at potentially phasing. So when we do move to right-of-way and construction, that maybe we could complete it in phases. There is an additional project in the interim that's going to be done for intersection improvements at Malabar and Corey and Malabar and Weber. And those projects are funded for construction in fiscal year 20. And then moving Malabar West. This project, the city has advertised the PD&E, and I think they've selected a consultant for the section of Malabar West from Minton to the St. John's Heritage Parkway. There's a lot of traffic on this corridor. We need to fund design. That is the next phase. And the good news is that the city has been very proactive and has purchased, I think they have about close to 50% right-of-way for the project right now, which is really good to move projects forward when you can be proactive like that. South Babcock. This is a project, County Road to the south. The PD&E is underway, and this runs from Micco Deer Run Road all the way up to Malabar. And we have design funded in fiscal year 21. This is another project that speaking with the DOT earlier in the week, they would like to potentially phase the project to where we can bite off little chunks of it, because the right-of-way cost is so expensive, it would be almost impossible to fund it anytime in the near future. So that's something we would like to sit down with the county and the DOT and talk about if that could be an option. But right now the design is funded in fiscal year 21. All right, and then my last project, the purple swath that you see there, this is a map of the St. John's Heritage Parkway. It runs from Babcock West and north up to Malabar Road, and it's the general area that will be undergoing an alternative corridor analysis to evaluate the purpose and need for a new roadway. And this will be the southern piece of the parkway, phase 4. And the study will be conducted by Brevard County. We have consultant shortlisting next week, as a matter of fact. And this will really kind of set us up to determine what are the 3 or 4 alignments that can move into a PD&E phase. So this is the very early stages of the project. But you know, the whole purpose and need of the St. John's Heritage Parkway was to create that new regional travel route that will alleviate congestion on the existing roads, such as 95, and help address current and future travel demand in a very fast-growing south part of the county. All right, and then this is a list of the new projects that we received and that we filtered into the priority list. And as you can see, what I find interesting is we only received 1 capacity project. So I see a shift, as Stephen said. A lot of these are multimodal improvements, reconstruction, bike ped, and ITS, more technology. But the 1 capacity project is a very needed project in Titusville, and that's State Road 405 South Street from State Road 50 to the existing 4-lane section. We're seeing quite a bit of growth, very high volumes on that roadway, so we need to be looking at it now and try to get that moving, because it does take years to get these projects done, so the sooner the better. And so what we are asking is for adoption of the fiscal year 2020 Transportation project priorities. And I also want to mention in your agenda package, for information purposes, we have Port Canaveral's projects, which are very important. They work directly with the Aviation and Port Office. And we also have Transit's projects that are important for them, Space Coast Area Transit, but those are for information purposes. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Georgia. Yes, I have one. That's the Ellis Road.
Yes.
All right, I know West Melbourne and County, and I see we're in the 60% design, which I'm thrilled to hear.
Yes.
So what's our next step? Because we really need to expedite this.
I think the next step is we should have a meeting, reach out to the county,
Okay.
and see if we're in a position to kind of understand what the exact right-of-way impacts are going to be. Since the DOT is actually administering the right-of-way phase for the county,
Okay.
can maybe the department shed some light on how much right-of-way funding are we really needing, and could some of the funding on the back end could it potentially be used for construction? And so that's something that I will be working on.
Okay.
That is the next step.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions, concerns? All right, seeing none, I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion for approval by Mayor Johnson, second by Ms. Minus. Discussion? Seeing none, this is, those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And I vote aye, and the motion passes. All right. Next is presentations, item 6A, FDOT, the SR 528, State Road 528 design update, and that's Jim Myers. Welcome.
So I'm doing a lot of talking today. You can tell me to shut up.
No, not at all.
So as Jim is coming up, I just want to remind everyone, we're not asking for any action on this item today, but we felt it was important to get an update from DOT. And if you remember in February, we had presentations from Bob Musser with Port Canaveral and Dr. Zarillo with FIT on the history of and the results of the numerical flushing model, and it was very, very interesting. Then we heard from DOT, and they gave us a current status of the 528 design and the preliminary construction costs if we were to step back and proceed with an elevated bridge span or causeway removal. So after the DOT's initial review of the model, they had a lot of questions. And so Dr. Zarillo has been working to try and answer those questions. And in June, Dr. Zarillo submitted an addendum to the original report. And this was in response to DOT's questions. So now DOT has received the new model files, and they're going through those files. They were received on June 24th, I think. Correct. And so, unfortunately, it's a lot of information to go through, and it just hasn't moved as quickly as we'd hoped. But DOT has put the design on hold, as I mentioned in a previous meeting, and they have asked for a meeting with the port, the county, and the TPO to sit down and discuss this and what the direction would be. And they would like a decision by September. And so I think our goal is to try to get to a point where we can make an informed decision as a board by September, whatever decision it is, so the department will know what direction they can go in, and then we as staff, if we need to do long-range plan amendments or what have you, we can do that. So I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Georgiana. All right.
Ready?
Yep,
Okay.
we're ready.
Well, Georgiana, great job. So, my name is Jim Myers, and thank you for allowing me to present the 528 update to you today. I'm a senior drainage engineer with the engineering firm TLP Engineering Consultants. We're one of the prime consultants for FDOT on this corridor, and really happy to be here to give you this update. As you know, there's been some previous updates given to you before, so some of these slides you're going to see are very familiar. Not a lot has changed, but one of the first things I wanted to mention was, as you guys know, we completed a PD&E study in 2006. And that PD&E study covered two projects that came out of that, two design segments, really from Industry Road over to just east of State Road 3, and then from State Road 3 over to the Port Canaveral interchange. Both of those projects started final design in 2016. Right away for those projects is programmed in 2024. Construction, as Georgiana mentioned earlier, is not funded in the 5-year work program. However, the eastern project from State Road 3 over to the Port Canaveral interchange is anticipated to be funded in 2028. Okay. Total expenditures so far on both of the projects by the DOT, just above $15 million. You've seen this table before in previous updates. The numbers have not changed on this table because the numbers were based on the recommendations from the December of 2018 FIT model study. And really the only additional lines that I added to this table were the very last two lines, which showed that if the east and the west projects, the -3 and the -4 projects were funded, the additional money in order to accomplish the recommendation from the FIT study would be $315 million. If only the eastern project or -4 project is funded as is anticipated now, the additional money needed to implement the recommendation would be $574 million. As Georgiana mentioned, we have received we received the December 18 model. We provided comments back to them in February of this year. And then just on June 24th, we received the new updated FIT model. Now, the review of the model is being done by DOT, and really it's just to provide an understanding for us in order to take the recommendations from the model and develop cost estimates like this for you guys to use in making your decision on how to proceed further with the causeway removal issue. We are not going to be making a recommendation regarding the causeway removal. Basically, at this time, our projects have to follow the 2006 PD&E recommendations. So let's say that in the next couple of months, the decision is made to move forward with the causeway removal. Basically, that's going to cause a reset in the project. And a reset in the project means new planning and PD&E studies are going to be required. Okay? Typically, the planning requirements are before the PD&E study. Okay? That includes a long-range transportation plan amendment. That typically takes anywhere between 6 and 12 months to accomplish. After that, the DOT would procure a professional consultant to do the PD&E study. That typically takes about a year. Once that professional consultant is on board to do the PD&E study, they have to go through the whole process, purpose and need, identifying the purpose and need of the project, doing engineering alternatives analysis, including a no-build alternative, doing a public engagement plan or a public involvement plan. And the ultimate goal is to get location design and design concept acceptance from FHWA. This whole process takes about 4 years. So to kind of summarize, if we reset the project with the causeway removals, we're looking at a delay in the project of up to 15 years, okay? And that's a best case scenario because we don't know how the funding is going to be advanced. Is it going to be consecutive funding for all the different phases, okay? Planning needs to be reprogrammed, reprioritized. And also there's some additional environmental and permitting risks that are always out there. We don't know what the criteria is going to be 15 years from now. So let me move on to the ELA update, or environmental look-around update, okay? Now this is something that's completely independent of the causeway removal issue that I just discussed. What this is a environmental look-around, and that it's a process that's occurring on the current project as we speak. And As we know, the PD&E study was completed in 2006. In that PD&E study, there was a pond siting report that was prepared. And in order to meet stormwater management requirements, they recommended 3 off-site ponds. Those ponds totaled about 15 acres in size of right-of-way, impacted about 13 acres of wetlands. But back then, in 2006, we didn't have nutrient loading requirements and criteria by the Water Management District. But since then, now we've come on board in 2017 or 2016 and started a pond siting report update in 2017. Now the BMAPs and the TMDL requirements have all been implemented in 2009. So we had to go ahead and update. And what we found, it's going to take, instead of just 3 ponds, now we're going to have 4 ponds. They're going to double in size to about 28 acres of right-of-way and 27 acres of wetland impacts. And so we also, at the same time, when we found that out, we also initiated what we call the environmental look-around process, okay? The ELA process really engages, and what you see here is all of the regional stakeholders. And every one of these people that you see here on this list have been involved. They've either been involved, whether it's been a large meeting, some of them have had meetings one-on-one, gained a lot of great input as to some innovative ideas that we can come explore regional opportunities possibly to come up with some innovative ideas to handle the stormwater management on the project, and I'm talking really from State Road 3 over to Port Canaveral now, to minimize environmental impacts. So what we did was we took a look and I say, we've got these 4 big offsite ponds now. Let's eliminate those ponds, okay? And let's see what we can do in order to meet the criteria. So we've done things like incorporated dry swales, nutrient separating baffle boxes, things like that, some innovative ideas, okay? We're able to actually incorporate that and eliminate all those ponds and still meet our total phosphorus reduction, okay? That's what you see in green here. But we weren't able to meet the total nitrogen requirements. So we said, all right, one of the things that came out of all these stakeholder meetings that I just mentioned was a possible FDOT participation in a septic to sewer conversion project. Those septic to sewer conversion projects have been identified in the Save Our Indian River Lagoon plan. They are very heavy on nitrogen, and so what we're thinking is let's do a joint participation project with FDOT and the county, and let's get one of these septic to sewer conversion projects implemented quicker. And what we actually selected one through our meetings with the county, Sykes Creek M, and instead of us having a slight increase of 6.5 kilograms per year in nitrogen, now we've actually decreased it by over 700. That's 160 times better than a traditional method. From an environmental side, now we don't have those ponds anymore, okay, because we've been able to eliminate, but we're still going to have a little bit of wetland impacts and everything because of the bridges. So one of the other ideas that came out of some of our stakeholder meetings and specifically with the county was FDOT to investigate the purchasing of some of the private lands in the mosquito impoundment area that's just south of State Road 528 and just east of Sykes Creek. And you can see here on the slide the land in blue. Those are the 9 locations that we're looking at investigating. It's about 129 acres of land. And what we're thinking is let's have FDOT purchase those lands, okay? Get it into DOT ownership. Let's enhance it. Let's conserve it. And then let's turn it over to Brevard County for management as part of their mosquito impoundment areas, okay? And Brevard County's doing that on other projects throughout the county in similar impoundment areas. So just to kind of summarize where we're at with the ELA process, or where we're at in the ELA process is using our traditional approach. We've got 4 off-site ponds, 28 acres of right-of-way, about 27 acres of wetland impacts. And really, you're reducing nitrogen and phosphorus into the lagoon, but it's not by much, okay? Now we move to our innovative ELA approach. We've got minimal right-of-way required, minimal wetland impacts, 160 times better nitrogen removal coming off of the project. And we're still meeting our phosphorus requirements. We've got a mosquito impoundment area that we can use for mitigation and enhancement, turn it over eventually to Brevard County. Participation in a septic to sewer conversion project. I really like this one because not only can we participate in the funding of a current project, but that money that would have gone to that project now can be used for another project that's maybe not funded at this time and can be advanced. And ultimately, we're excited because we're helping the water quality in the lagoon, and we're really excited to incorporate this into our project. With that, open it up to questions.
All right, thank you. Mayor Johnson.
I understand the last part of the septic to sewer to decrease pollution, but what does removing the causeway, what is the purpose of that?
Well, again, that's an independent, it's independent of this ELA process. The removal of the causeway is being looked at from a flushing standpoint, and there's no tie between that and water quality.
What is it flushing? How is it flushing?
It's a circulation model. I'm not the expert with the FIT model.
That's a lagoon.
Correct.
And there's no flow except possibly from Port Canaveral, which is closed by locks.
It's my understanding that the majority of the circulation is wind-driven in the lagoon.
Yes.
But again, we're focused on the water quality coming off of the DOT project, and there's no tie between that flushing study and water quality. So that's why they're independent.
I don't necessarily disagree that the majority is caused by wind. The question is, how much does it really accomplish, the wind? I live on the lagoon.
Sure.
And there is no flow except when there's wind, but it usually just goes east or west because of prevailing winds.
Sure.
And it goes up and down in that particular area. There's nowhere for it to go. There's no flushing action caused by that. It's just moved around.
Sure.
So you've got to remove causeways to move the water around.
Well, and that's why we've been focused on what can we do as far as the water entering the lagoon. Okay, we're saying, look, let's take that phosphorus and nitrogen out of the water even before.
I understand that.
Okay.
I don't understand the causeway. It seems like an awfully big expense to move water in the circle.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Gibson. Yes.
Well, that'll kind of segue into my question. It's kind of a two-part. That's going to segue into the question that I have, or the comment is, so FIT just got an earmark grant of around $800,000 to study the inflow of salt water coming into the lagoon. And what I'm concerned about, and the wind flow, and I've voiced this, my opinion, and my concern about this whole project is there's so many what ifs. What if this, what if that, what if this, right? And so now we have this whole other study coming in. So if you look at that possibility that down the road, probably 10 or 15 or 20 years, let's say they find out that the inflow or pumping salt water into the lagoon is something we're going to do, I would imagine it would change this model. And that's the question that I would like to find out is there any anticipation of that possibly changing it, and how much? And will that change the load difference, and would that make a difference ultimately? I mean, at $315 million is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I get it, and I was sort of a proponent for raising it, but that's just, it's a lot of money. But is there really a dollar figure on the ultimate health of the lagoon if we know ultimately down the road this would have been detrimental?
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? We don't know that for sure. We don't know, so.
Agreed.
I've got Commissioner Lober.
Just real briefly, actually, comment to Mr. I'm sorry, if you'd like.
Well, I was going to just respond. You know, we're really staying focused with the department's project, the DOT project at this time. And the numbers that I gave you today are hard numbers. Right. Those are true numbers. Those were based on scientific, you know, the software and the project, or in the programs that we use, and the agencies have all accepted. So those are true and hard numbers. And you're right, I can't really speak to the study.
No. Yeah, I know.
You know, all I know is there's not really been that link between the flushing study and the water quality. And so,
Because they're gonna do it right now. They haven't
Yeah,
done it yet, that's my point.
All right. Commissioner Lober.
Just a real brief comment on what Mayor Johnson mentioned before about the flushing, or I guess the circulation as a result of the wind. What I'll tell you as someone that's been under the water in addition on top of it, is the wind will drive a lot more current on the surface than it will even a foot or two below. So whatever you're seeing on the surface, if that doesn't appear to be terribly much volume moving, it's probably even worse below the surface. So it really may have a negligible impact if it looks like it's moving a small amount on the surface, because essentially nothing below that may be moving.
All right. All right, Mayor Johnson.
I wanted to address what you were talking about. I looked at some studies and different people that know, of course, the lagoon is brackish water with a low salinity. The ocean is salt water with a high salinity. And from what I've heard, anything that might change that to a higher salinity is going to change the whole nature of the lagoon.
I'm with you on this one. I'm not saying I'm supportive of it.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm
Yeah.
just telling you what I've heard and what I've seen in studies that have been done previously.
It's always a new study, like we asked about the previous studies on the 2006, and there were some earlier that said it was detrimental to the grass, and then the new one was not detrimental to the grass. So, and there's just so much conflicting information, it's hard to really make a decision on, for me. That's where I've been coming from.
All right. Did you want to respond?
if
No?
I'd like to add.
Okay.
You know, one of the things that we were trying to do too, and again, I kind of restated again, was we're trying to capture that water and not let it get to the lagoon first, because there is a concern, possibly, like Commissioner Lobo said, where if you allow this to discharge in, you don't know what you're going to stir up under there, and so we're trying to focus on that before we actually discharge.
Okay. And Commissioner Allender?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And certainly we've heard a lot of very impressive negative aspects of why we shouldn't delay. However, if you recall in our resolution that we adopted back in March, we wanted to see what needed to be done to benefit the Indian River Lagoon system. So it would appear that we're premature in trying to make a decision right now, let's go forward, since we really are not really focusing on the Indian River Lagoon. I mean, the governor just gave $800,000 to continue some studying on that. So granted, delaying is not so good, and it might be expensive, but are we at the stage where we need to be primarily concerned about the future of the lagoon 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now? Because once we do the causeways, we're sort of stuck with it during the rest of our lifetime. And, you know, I don't know if it would be appropriate, I can open my mouth and I can move my lips, but I would like to use the voice, perhaps, if he's willing, of the port engineer, Bill Crow, who's been eminently involved in this, to comment, make any comments that might be related. I mean, obviously for Port Canaveral, the 528 is important, and we'd like to have it done yesterday. But we don't want to rush to judgment and do things that, again, in the future, we'll be sorry that we did it then, because obviously we're looking at a lot of money now. We're looking at a lot of money in the future, but we can't just really consider the money. We need to consider what is best for the area as well as the lagoon, because certainly it doesn't seem to be getting a whole lot better. And sort of mixing apples and oranges, while we're concerned about the sewers and the septic tanks, you know, and there's going to be some benefit there, but we have to really consider in total what is best for the Indian River Lagoon. And again, I hate to study things to death, but again, once we make a decision, once the state makes a decision, we're sort of stuck with it. And I know we've had several times and discussing the matter with Bill Crow, but if you, I'll keep my mouth open, and you can think that the voice is coming from me, but if you would indulge, and let me have Bill Crow just make some general comments, I would say from the port's viewpoint.
Okay, and then Commissioner Pritchett wanted to speak. Do you want to listen to Mr. Crow's, or did you want to wait?
It's fine. I'm
Okay.
kind of in a different opinion, even
Okay.
though I'm with the lagoon, so I'm good to
Okay.
finish this. before-
All right.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Crow?
Okay. Bill Crow, Vice President of Engineering and Construction for Canaveral Port Authority. And I think our approach to date has certainly been one of collaboration. We've been working closely with DOT District 5 for probably the past couple of years at multiple meetings. And I think what I wanted to point out, and thank you, Commissioner Allender, for giving me the opportunity, is just that it's been a very collaborative effort so far. Your resolution from Resolution 1915, the first item that says FDOT would continue evaluating the 2018 numerical model flushing study. That's the study that's been referenced by Florida Tech. This isn't the only resolution that's been put out there. I know that there's at least 3 others. You have Brevard County commissioners that have put out a similar resolution. Port Canaveral Commission has as well. And even Dr. Dwayne DeFries, the Indian River Lagoon Council, has put out a similar resolution. And what we're asking for is the same thing we've been asking for the past couple of years, is what is the answer? What is the study going to show? We don't know exactly yet, but there are some important venues coming up. If I could highlight August 7th, there's going to be a meeting at Port Canaveral. This meeting wasn't per se spearheaded by the port, but rather by FDEP, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and St. John's Water Management District. So I know there's a lot of interest in what the effects could be of elevating those causeways. I also understand the project schedule, being an engineer myself, and I know in DOT timeframes, even potential funding in 2018 will be here before we know it, but that's still 9 years away. I think there's still opportunities for us to take a closer look at this. I think even there's enough interest in the community and in the region from an environmental standpoint that even if DOT District 5 were to continue on with their design development, there would still be studies. There's still going to be this concerted effort for people to take a look at what would the effects be by elevating those causeways. And the $800,000 grant that the governor's office has released to FIT, I think, is a good sign of the governor's interest in the health of the Indian River Lagoon system. So that will continue to be the port's approach. We're a good neighbor. We want to be a collaborative partner. And much like you, we want to know, what's the science say? What's the study going to reveal to us? I'd be glad to take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Crow? All right. All right.
He would have said it much better.
I don't think so. That's why I get my mouth open.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pritchett.
Yes, ma'am. Is there a causeway in there now?
Yes, it's a predominantly an earthen causeway with limited bridge.
What's the amount of money that we have coming right now as grant funds to redo the causeway?
You're talking about that is as far as the bridge replacements? Well, there's no construction funding except for the eastern section, and that's out in 2028, correct?
Correct, 2028. And on the table, again, it was $216 million.
Okay.
Okay, so here's a thought right now. If we delay this money, they're going to move to other parts because this is what happens. And I've been involved in this for a while, especially in our area. We let a lot go. And if we don't take funding, it's going to go somewhere else. There's still going to be a causeway there in 15 years if we delay it. So I think we need to move forward with this project. There's new technology coming, or we're going to lose funding, and that's a lot of money that rolls into our economy. This is going to help some of the environmental. Maybe we should have started this process 15 to 20 years ago. And not that the lagoon isn't important, but there's other things we got to think about, and we got to fix this causeway to get traffic over to the beach and the other areas. And I think for Commissioner Lober, this has got to be behind his priority list to get his areas fixed up. So although I think we need to get alternative ways to fix whatever we need to fix the lagoon, I'm not a scientist on that, I think it would be really concerning to turn away this type of funds because it will go away and it will go somewhere else, and we're going to be scrapping trying to get it again. And we scrap a lot up north, and we're good at it. But that would be very frustrating if we already have those funds. So I think this is a good project to move forward with. All things being perfect, it would be great to have all those other things coming alongside of it, but, you know, we'll have to listen to more information coming forward. But the more I think on this, I think it would be smart for the county and the community not to turn away this type of funds coming in at this time, because it's a long time to wait out there, and we might not even get them again.
Commissioner Lober, and then followed by Mayor Johnson.
I obviously have the utmost respect both for Commissioner Allender and Commissioner Pritchett. I'm kind of between the two of you with respect to this issue. I can tell you that I do agree it is important that from my perspective we have something done so that we don't lose the funding. However, in my estimation, just to be as candid as possible, I don't know that the TPO has been presented with enough information at this juncture to make an educated decision. So my ask of folks, since obviously sunshine prohibits us communicating about this outside, is to reach out to Dr. DeFries or to Virginia Barker sometime between now and the next meeting and touch base with them about their thoughts on this issue. If there are other folks that have expertise, you may want to reach out to them. And I'm not trying to detract in any way from any of the statistics that FDOT's put together or any of the other statistics that we've seen. But I think it's important to get a really nice, well-rounded view where you have complementary or perhaps opposing viewpoints that are extended and made known to you. I've learned a lot of things from each of the separate pools of resources that are available. And quite frankly, I don't agree 100% with anyone's view on the lagoon. I agree a little bit with some, a lot with others. And I think it's such an important thing that, as Commissioner Allender mentioned, this, whatever we do, whether it's now or in 15 years or 9 years or whatever the number is, that's going to be it for the remainder of our lives. It's going to be there essentially for our intents and purposes forever. So I agree we need to get moving on it, but I would just ask people to spend 45 minutes or an hour between now and the next meeting to just try to make that contact and see what the viewpoints are. And if you're satisfied at that point that we're at a stage where we can move forward intelligently, then God bless, I'll support that. But if you're not, I think it's something we need to have a discussion about.
All right, thank you. Mayor Johnson.
My point is, I think we should be darn sure of what we're doing before we spend $200 million on something that's not going to really accomplish anything. I certainly think what you are doing at this point is needed and should be primary at this point before anything else is done. I'll give you an example of a project not too many years ago where, had it been done, it probably would have killed the whole lagoon. It was a desalinization plant that was going to be put in at where the FDL plant is. And we said, well, okay, but where are you going to put this off? Put it in the river. There was no thoughts to the fact that that would go on forever and it would kill the river. And it was in the paper, it was going forward, and enough people said, wait, environmentalists, who some of you have mentioned, Orly Thompson was another one, who said, wait, we're going to kill the river. So sometimes things get going for good reasons that shouldn't continue until we absolutely know what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? All right. So, Mr. Myers, any further comments or? No?
I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm available for questions.
All right. Any questions? All
I
right.
just wanted to mention one thing in response to what Commissioner Pritchett said. You know, that's what makes this such a difficult decision in trying to figure this out. You know, as far as, you know, is the benefit going to be worth the impact in delaying the project and the cost? And that's what we got to get down to. And I don't think, as you said, Commissioner Lober, we don't really have all the information yet, but we do know how much it's going to cost. And whether we do the whole tamale, which includes the 528 bridges and 520 bridges, or just the 528 over the Banana River, it's going to push back the project, the complete project, back to PD&E. And is it my understanding that if it goes back to PD&E, what may come out of that is that it may say that causeway removal is not warranted, correct?
Yes, and I just switched it over to the slide, and even though I said it just briefly, I said it includes, the engineering analysis will include a no-build scenario, okay, as all PD&E studies do. And as you know, the 2006 PD&E study was based on traffic. in 2006, and projections, okay? You don't know really what's going to happen with the new traffic projections that would come out of this new PD&E study, okay? So, you know, that no-build alternative is a viable alternative. And you know, until they get going with the traffic, you're just not too sure. One of the other things they also look at is, you know, socioeconomic impacts, things like that. So, yes.
And the other thing I did want to mention, last year there were, I think, $1 billion deferred in the SIS plan. And a lot of it had to do with costs of construction. Hurricane Michael, of course, was a big part of that as well. But $1 billion, because the SIS funding comes out of central office. It's not funded in the district. So it is an important decision, and no matter what direction we go, I appreciate that the department is allowing the TPO to make this decision for what is important to the community. But as long as everyone understands what the impacts are, and if we can live with it, then that's what we need to try to get to, hopefully at the September meeting. And so it'll be good for everyone to get educated on this issue, and hopefully the department will finalize their review of the updated model, and we can have those results. That would be really important.
Commissioner Lober.
Just in the sake of a little levity, am I wrong for seriously contemplating driving in circles over the traffic counting device for a couple days? Just again and again and again and again?
That's good.
All right.
How do I respond?
Yeah. All right, very good.
All right.
All right, thank you, Mr. Myers.
Thank you.
All right, next, just to remind you, we have no meeting in August, and our next meeting will be September 12th at 1:30 in this room. So if there's no other business, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
At 3:23. Thank you, everyone. It was a great meeting.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.